Before we start reading values off graphs, we first need to explore a graph's axes and the units that it's using to measure different values. So all graphs that we're going to be exploring have two axes. They have a horizontal axis called the x-axis. So horizontal means side to side. So that's this axis here running left to right. And there's also a vertical axis, meaning up and down, which we call the y-axis. So that would be this axis here, running from the bottom up to the top. That's the y-axis. So for real life graphs, the x and y axes actually represent real life values that are being compared. So here's an example below, and we're asked, what do the axes represent for this graph? So let's start with the x-axis. What does the x-axis represent? So we can find it down here. It's the axis running horizontally, and we see that it represents time in weeks. And how about the y-axis? What does the y-axis represent? So again, this is going to be the axis going up and down, and we can even see the y here, which is very helpful for us. But we see that it's measuring the amount of money that has been saved, according to the title, the amount of money. So I'll write amount of money saved in dollars. When we get to the point where we're actually reading specific values off the graph, we need to be comfortable with these axes. So each axis has a scale with units. And what I mean by that is that you can see on, for instance, well, let's start with the x-axis. You can see that the x-axis has these different ticks that are counting up certain numbers of weeks. That's what we call the scale. And the units are in the brackets here. So it's not 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We're told by the scale that it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we have a scale, that's the numbers, and we have units to tell us what those numbers mean. So now, what does each grid line represent on the x-axis? Well, as we can see, each grid line counts up by 1 week. So each grid line equals 1 week on the x-axis. How about on the y-axis? On the y-axis, we see that the numbers on the scale are only on every other line. But if it takes 2 lines to go up to 10 here, from 0 to 10, then half of that amount must be 5. And so then between 10 and 20 is $15. Between 20 and 30 is $25. So we can see that each little tick is representing $5. One more important feature to do with the axes is graphs also have what's called a Y-intercept. Y-intercept, the point where the line crosses the y-axis. And so what is the y-intercept, or what is the y-intercept of the graph, and what does it mean? So finding the point where the line crosses the y-axis, we can see that the y-intercept is equal to $30. What does it mean? Well, it's telling us the amount of money at 0 weeks. So this is the amount of money that has been saved to begin with. The amount of money, the amount of savings that you're beginning with before you start saving week after week. So amount of savings at the beginning.